New Angela's Soul is quickly becoming my pet project. I'm not sure if you're surprised by that or not. I really do sincerely believe that it's one of the strongest decks you can create with this ID, and I think it will go very far. However, I haven't had any testing with true tier 1 decks yet. No Noise, no Prepaid Kate, no Regis Max, no solid ND decks. So do take what I put here with a grain of salt. I am, however, going up against a Desperado Valencia today, and we'll see how that works out. Now, some of you might really be wondering from my last video, of which I must say, if you haven't checked out my New Angela Soul introduction video, be sure to check it out. It's somewhere okay, I'll put it in the description. Basically, Cerebral Static is very iffy. It is definitely a meta call. It's like plus crit except that it costs influence, so that's a bit iffy. But I think it's such a strong silver bullet against Noise and Max that I think it's worth including in this deck, even as a 2-off. Because it just counters them so hard. I mean, I know it's dead against lots of matchups, including the one that I'm about to show you against Valencia, but I think it's totally worth it. So you might be asking, do you use 1 Cerebral Static or 2? My deck runs 2. It costs 4 influence, but I think it's worth it. With 2 Cerebral Statics, I have a 35.3% chance of seeing at least one of it through my opening hand or mulliganing. This is compared to the roughly 20% chance if I go down to a 1-off, a singleton Cerebral Static. And I think the improved chance is very huge, because against Noise and Max, you want to see that card ASAP. It basically wins you games outright by completely denying their ability, because the deck is completely built based on their ability. So let's get down to it. Cerebral Static's useless in this deck. In this matchup, but I'm keeping this opening hand because it has money. Lots of money. Pet Campaign is money, Pop-Up Window is fantastic money, and Sensitivity Grid is always a welcome sight, because so long as they don't run R&D, there's always a chance of you top decking the Astro, allowing you to instantly score one early Astro out, and that's huge. Now my hand is now saturated with agendas, but he cannot know that because I did not mulligan. And anyway, I'm more than happy for him to steal my agendas. NAPD? Sure. I'm not going to score an NAPD against Valencia anyway. 15 minutes? Go ahead. Be my guest. I'm going to reshuffle it back into my deck and score it out later on. What I have laid out is a Pet Campaign and a Sense Grid. I'm looking to rest the Pet Campaign ASAP, and I hope to see a paywall implementation soon enough. Here he plays an adjusted chronotype without wildside support. This I definitely do not agree with. And it's probably one of his biggest mistakes this game. You really need that credit level to threaten trashing stuff and all of that. So he saw a team sponsorship on top of my R&D, did not trash it for obvious reasons. I'm just going to install it in that case, as well as a marked accounts. So at the start of his turn, he installs a Parasite on my pop-up window. Very annoying. Goes into my R&D and steals an agenda. Except that there are no agendas on my R&D. Haha. Okay. Serious business. He has to run my remotes to keep me honest. He knows that I've drawn about 8 cards this game so far. There has to be agenda somewhere. And if he's thinking that, he's absolutely right. There are agendas. The only problem is they are not where he thinks they are. They are in HQ. If he knew that, he would definitely be hammering my HQ, but no. They are in HQ. They're pretty safe because he's not running my HQ. A paywall implementation would really help. Even if he steals my agendas, I'm getting money, I'm coming out ahead, believe it or not. So here, with team sponsorship now, I can score my 15 minutes. The main motivation of this is to resurrect the pop-up window that is destroyed with Parasite. I love team sponsorship. It is absolute. Oh wait, he just installed a clone chip. Fine, you can have my pop-up window again, because clone chip is more broken than team sponsorship. But you see how amazing team sponsorship is. You don't just resurrect Jackson Howard's Daily Business Show Pet Campaigns with it. You can res Ice too. And that's amazing. Because if they choose not to trash your assets, you just get your Ice back and you lock R&D once again. Of course, it didn't happen in this case because he had Parasite and a clone chip. So now I have to be concerned about R&D defense once again, which is why I'm overdrawing right now. Hopefully I see a Astro script. Right now, there's absolutely no motivation for him to run my HQ. Until he gets a Desperado out, it's not worth it for him to keep hitting my hand, unless he knows there are agendas inside. In the meantime, I'm just going to chalk up lots of money with marked accounts. Now, this is another big change I made from my initial deck, which I showed in my introductory video. I've scrapped the total backs for marked accounts. The main reason is influence. Another big reason is because turtle bags is way too slow. As I mentioned, you need 6 assets. You need to install 6 new remotes for it to be on par with hedge fund, and that is way too slow for this deck. Whereas with marked accounts, I can hit the marked accounts right now, and it's going to generate me lots of money. I will get up to 8 credits by the next turn. If he doesn't steal the Astro Script from my hand, I will fast advance the Astro Script. This is the power of marked accounts that Turtlebags doesn't offer. If that marked accounts that you see on the table right now had been a Turtlebags, I wouldn't have enough money to score the Astro. Or the Doge Pilot Program, whatever you call it. In the meantime, he's doing a pretty decent job taking a bill from R&D because there's no ice there, and keeping me honest. Unfortunately for him, he's not hitting my HQ too much, and because of that, I get uncontested Astro Script. This is huge. It puts me on 3 points. I'm 2 agendas away from victory, and I have an Astro Script. And team sponsorship says, I think I need to defend R&D. I'm gonna put a News Hound R&D, take the tag. Now, News Hound kind of sucks without a current out, so I'm not gonna res it. I could actually, oh sorry, I have no credits. I would definitely have resed it if I actually had credits, but I don't. News Hound is pretty important because even if you don't have a current on the table, slapping tags on a runner that is dependent on the resources is huge. It is a mini Gutenberg, like it or not. And that's quite true. You think about it. Without a current out, News Hound reses for 2, the same as Gutenberg. It traces for 3, which is much less than a Gutenberg, allows you to easily outtrace it, which a runner would do almost every time. He made a mistake here, not to outtrace the Gutenberg. That's a huge mistake. It only cost him 2 credits, essentially, because of the bad pub. It's way more preferable to remove the tag, to beat the trace than to remove the tag manually. So he removed the tag manually. Again, this is tempo loss for him. As I was saying, without a current, News Hound is a mini Gutenberg, which is not too bad, with lots of runners being reliant on resources nowadays. At best, it ends the run as a strength 4 sentry. As I said, that is the main reason to play this deck as opposed to near hard fast advance. So now I have 2 marked accounts trickling in the money for me. This is getting out of hand. He's not even attempting to trash my Sense Grid, which is going to be a huge problem for him once I find my bills. Unfortunately, all I'm finding are NAPD contracts that cost 5 advancement tokens to advance. Yuck. Yuck, yuck, yuck. Not much I can do about that. But what I do is to seal up R&D with an Enigma. Until he finds some sort of code gate breaker, he's not getting through R&D. Which is really important because now R&D is the only way he's going to stop me. Either that or finding both NAPDs from my hand, which is doable, I must admit, now that he has found his Desperado, but pretty unlikely. And with that daily business show out, things are going to get even better for me. I do draw into, finally I find my first current, a Cerebral Static. Bit too late for that. And I also ice up HQ at this point because I cannot afford to let him steal both NAPDs from my hand. In the meantime, he continues setting up. He has been playing very aggressively early on, which is a good thing to do against Near Hub. Keeping my remotes honest, hammering R&D to make sure I don't top deck any agendas. Unfortunately for him, without Desperado out during the entire early game, he has suffered massively. If he had Desperado out on turn 1, he would be about 12 credits richer by now. So that's a huge problem for him. With daily business show out, I'm getting my 3rd agenda out. And I'm going to be very sneaky here. With team sponsorship, I install an agenda naked on the table. And this is bad for him. In the meantime, virtual cookie for you if you can figure out why I'm playing Cerebral Static using New Angela Soul's ability right now. So, I'm basically going to win the game next turn. If he runs my NAPD, I'm going to score the NAPD that's in my hand right now on Sense Grid with double Astro token. If he does not run the NAPD on the table right now, I slow advance it to victory. 5 advancements, doesn't matter. When you have 2 Astro tokens, anything's possible. He does the right thing here, he denies the DBS, but unfortunately he doesn't know that the game is more or less over because I have 2 ways to win, and that's that. For the record, I played Cerebral Static to add the end run subroutine to the News Hound in case he runs my hand. So that was a pretty convincing victory. We now ask ourselves, why was that the case? I think for that, it's easier to look from the perspective of the runner. So, first few turns, HQ was left wide open. Does the runner want to run my HQ? He doesn't know that there are 2 agendas in there. And that's the big thing. It's really not that worth it to run HQ, but yet he needs to do that. The thing is nowadays with Anarchs and Shapers being so popular, they both lack HQ pressure to some degree. And it's just not equitable to run HQ without some form of HQ pressure. Even leg working isn't the best, because I'm not near hub. You don't really expect too many agendas to be in there. If your legwork whiffs, you're in a worse spot because you just spent 2 credits and your important multi-access card. Yet you still need to do it, because if you don't, I'm just going to score that 15 minutes to get me an early lead. I have the NAPD, which I can score later on. So, yeah, unless you are Gabriel Santiago, unless you are maybe Lila, I don't know, some form of criminal that is rewarded for running HQ, the payoff you get for running HQ is absolutely terrible. And because of that, I exploit it to the fullest. I can get away with playing no HQ ice at all. Even against criminals, I might decide to do that. If I have a Sansan City Grid in my opening hand, hell yeah, I'm gonna install a Sansan, and if you siphon me, I'm gonna rest the City Grid and blank your siphon. So most games I can actually get away with no HQ ice. This allows me to run fewer ice in my deck. The current iteration runs 11 to 12 ice as opposed to the standard 16 for NBN Fast Advance, and I think that's a huge advantage, allowing me to slot in more tech cards, which I'm going to talk about right now. A lot of tech cards in my deck to fuel the horizontal play of my New Angela Soul deck. Horizontal Corps are in a very good position now because there are very few counters to it on the runner side, especially when you decide to blank out most of the existing counters. The only really effective card right now is Astrolabe, and even then, I sweep to capitalize on that. For every other thing that threatens remote play, I have a solution. Are you going to aim my assets? CVS is there to say no. And that is instant fire as well. Are you playing Valencia? Are you going to trash my assets and upgrades for 1 credit less? Well, you can. You just give me 1 extra credit every time you run, thanks to paywall. Are you Wizard? Are you going to trash every single asset, every single turn, making use of your ID ability? What ID ability? Your text box is blank. I'm playing Cerebrostatic. And against every single runner, after they trash 3 daily business shows, 2 pet campaigns, and all my sensitive grids, I score 15 minutes and my team sponsorships come into play to bring the assets back. Now, are you going to trash them again and slow your play down that much more? This is why I love this deck. This is why I think it's so good. You can't afford to trash all my assets. You cannot help but to you cannot stop me from getting rich, basically. Either you run my assets and I get paywall money, or you don't trash my assets and I get drip econ. As you saw this game, he chose not to trash my assets, and as a result, I got up to 8 credits very quickly, allowing me to threaten Sansan Astro Script very, very quickly. And my lightning setup speed combined with a good draw was what allowed me to win the game very quickly before he could even set up or play a single blackmail against me. So, are you convinced by this deck now? I hope you are. Across the past 3 videos, I've been doing a pretty decent job against all the decks. That being said, again, I can't stress this enough. As I said at the start of this video, this deck hasn't gone through the gauntlet of tier 1 runner decks yet. I'll need to test it more against the best of the best to find out whether this really can hold its weight in a competitive scene. But it's a pretty good deck to bring to a Game Night Kit tournament nonetheless, and I highly recommend it. Thanks for watching and happy net running. Goodbye everyone.